before we begin talking about the RNC, I would like to acknowledge that your dear colleague, Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, died last night after a battle with cancer. The Congresswoman left her law career in 1995 to represent her community in Houston's City Council. She then served in the House of Representatives in a career that spanned more than 30 years. She was a huge supporter of civil rights legislation and instrumental in the establishment of Juneteenth as a national holiday. I'd like to get your thoughts on her passing and its impact.
Well, I think the entire Congress and everyone that has known her throughout the years is just incredibly saddened. Today, I think she has left such a legacy on civil rights, uplifting particularly working class communities. I know she's not just a legend in Texas, she's a legend across the country. She's a force of nature. So all of us that know her in Congress, the amount of respect that we have for her, especially those of us like myself that are freshmen going into the Congress, the amount of just credibility, strength, and power that she has always held. And so I think all of us are just saddened at this moment, and we're all wishing, of course, her family and her team the absolute best. And I expect that in the weeks and months ahead, there will be many ways to honor her legacy and celebrate her incredible life.
And truly, may her memory be a blessing. So, Congressman, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the RNC. You and I have seen a lot of Republican national conventions, but this one really was a doozy. Your thoughts about what happened in Milwaukee this past week?
Well, I mean, look, Republicans and Donald Trump doubled down on Project 25 and their extreme radical agenda. I mean, let's start with Donald Trump. What a bizarre speech. I mean, not only was it rambling and full of lies and totally strange for a presidential nomination speech, he doubled down on his most radical ideas. This is a person that is committed to a horrific agenda for immigrants in this community. He talked about mass deportations. It was one of his most anti-immigrant speeches that he has made. And he talked about, again, the election. He cannot for the life of him accept that he lost the election. And I'll say one other thing that was especially, I think, jarring for a lot of us is he somehow took credit for his work during the pandemic. I mean, this is the person that helped crash the economy, had no real response, was telling people to get not vaccinated, but instead inject bleach into themselves. As a person, by the way, who lost two parents due to the pandemic, his actions are reprehensible, and he caused the death of so many Americans across this country by being so irresponsible. So his speech was insulting, as it was bizarre.
You know, Congressman, one of the biggest themes at the RNC was the anti-immigration rhetoric. You talked about how Trump doubled down on it. I mean, the signs galore, mass deportation now. I mean, it is not a secret what he did during his first term. He's definitely not made it a secret, especially when you look at Project 2025, which is the blueprint for a second Trump administration. What he will do, detention camps, more separation of children from their parents, and this, quote, mass deportation. Talk about, Congressman, the very real implications of what these concepts are.
First, I think it's very, very clear to Latinos, to immigrants, to folks that just believe in good humanity across the country, that Donald Trump is the most anti-immigrant person to run for president and be a nominee of the modern era. The kind of rhetoric that he said, not just in his speech, but somehow that we're poisoning the blood of this country, that we are non-human, is not only disgusting, but it's anti-American. I'm an immigrant. I came to this country as a young child. My family worked hard to earn citizenship. And the way he treats people that I grew up with, people like my family, he should be ashamed and disgusted. Immigrants, those that are earning citizenship, when we raise our right hand to this country and pledge an oath, we are also patriots. We pledge to this country, and he is continuously dehumanizing us every single chance he gets. J.D. Vance believes in the exact same thing. And so I think that this kind of rhetoric needs to be denounced by all folks across this country. And Project 2025 would roll back any progress that we have made, and not just on immigration, but on so many other issues that are important to us as just good human beings, as Democrats, and as middle-class, working-class families. And so I think it's really important to continue to highlight Project 2025, and especially for those of us that are Latinos, that are immigrants, that know this community. He is attacking us with his, and quite frankly, racist comments every single day, and he certainly did again in his convention speech.
Congressman, you've made it clear you are riding with Biden. Why is the Biden-Harris ticket the way to win?
Look, I have been with the president and the vice president from day one. I know for a fact that President Biden, besides being a good man, has been a very successful president. Look at the record of the last 3.5 years. It is an unprecedented record, the most progressive record of any modern president, the most successful record probably since FDR, lowering the price of insulin, infrastructure across this country, fighting for a woman's right to choose, the work he's done around student loan debt relief, climate change. And so this is someone that has delivered. And so for me, I'm going to stand with the president that has delivered for this country, and the only person in this country that has ever defeated Donald Trump at the battle box is named Joe Biden. And so for me, standing with the president and the vice president is not a hard choice. I'm with them. They are in this race. I was just on a call just last night with some of the top campaign folks. They knocked on 100,000 doors in the last week in battleground states. These activists on the ground, the campaign workers, the volunteers, 100,000. And the response that they're getting door to door is folks are telling the campaign folks that they support the president and they're ready to work. People are fired up. And so, look, I understand that people have different perspectives, and I respect my colleagues that may think differently and have a different perspective, because we all want to defeat Donald Trump. But my position is I'm standing with our president and our vice president, and we need to do everything that we can every single day to defeat Donald Trump.
Well, I will tell you, you're not standing alone. The latest is former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have put their backing to Joe Biden. Congressman Robert Garcia, as always, thanks for being here.